obviamente, a responsabilidade com o desenvolvimento sustentável. O desenvolvimento sustentável nos é considerado um fator extremamente importante, não só no controle da produção de medicamentos, mas também no controle de seu uso. O Ministério da Saúde sueco e o governo sueco como um todo têm enfatizado constantemente a importância do desenvolvimento sustentável, particularmente no que concerne aos efeitos e impactos ambientais causados pela produção e consumo de medicamentos, que foram assuntos que tivemos a felicidade de apresentar aqui para a agência brasileira durante nossas reuniões com os comitês especializados e com os experts em si.
So this was a very brief overview of the responsibilities and priorities of the Swedish agency. I would like to spend a few minutes just to give you a brief overview of what I mentioned as one of the priorities of the Swedish government, to work more directly and more focused on the development and the priorities of better use of medicine, an area that I know Anvisa has been engaged in together with many other stakeholders over several years. First of all, some background facts based on the Swedish market. The cost of pharmaceuticals make up more than 10% of the total healthcare cost in Sweden. This, of course, is one reason why it's important to focus on to ensure that the spending of this large amount of money is made in the best possible way. 65% of the population, more than half of the population, during 1 year, during 2009, use some kind of prescribed drug. So prescribed drugs are used very widely in the population. And in addition, our citizens over 80 years have on average 6 ongoing prescribed drugs as a medication. And I think since many of you are experts in this field, you know that this is a cause for great concern with interactions between the different substances. Another comment on some of the facts on the more negative side is that we have a lot of side effects from the use of medication. An estimated 3,000 patients in Sweden, and Sweden has a population of about 9 million, are expected or estimated to actually die annually due to medication errors. Not all of those are avoidable, but that is the number that is calculated from the research that we have conducted. Approximately 100,000 patients are actually hospitalized due to unexpected medication effects. And finally, the annual cost for these medication errors is estimated to about 10 billion Swedish crowns, which would be the equivalent of between 2 and 3 billion Brazilian real. And out of those 10 billion Swedish crowns, 50% is expected to be due to lack of compliance. That is, that the patient is taking too much medication or taking too little medication. It's not following the doctor's prescriptions. And 25% of that is probably due to incorrect prescriptions or other avoidable errors. And these are some of the facts that has inspired the Swedish MPA, but also the Swedish Ministry of Health, to encourage the different stakeholders to jointly work out a national strategy for pharmaceuticals.
Alguns fatos interessantes sobre o mercado de farmacêuticos aqui na Suécia. Can you go back to the previous? Algo em torno de 10% do custo total de atenção à saúde na Suécia advém de compras de medicamentos. E é, obviamente, uma grande preocupação para que essa grande quantia de dinheiro seja gasta da melhor forma possível. 65% da população sueca utilizou drogas com prescrição médica durante o ano de 2009, o que mostra que a utilização de medicamentos com prescrição médica na Suécia é algo largamente utilizado. Em média, um cidadão sueco com mais de 80 anos de idade correntemente está consumindo mais ou menos 6 medicamentos com prescrição médica, o que obviamente levanta sérias preocupações sobre os efeitos de interações medicamentosas. Com relação a efeitos colaterais, mais ou menos 3 mil suecos, e lembrando que a população total da Suécia é de apenas 9 milhões de habitantes, morrem anualmente devido a erros médicos. Essa informação não é de fácil verificação, mas foram informações confiáveis obtidas de pesquisas que nós mesmos fizemos. É um número relativamente grande. Temos um número total de mais ou menos 100 mil pacientes hospitalizados todo ano devido a efeitos inesperados de medicação. E efeitos inesperados podem incluir, e o custo disso para o governo sueco está em torno de 10 bilhões de coroas suecas, que equivaleriam na nossa moeda mais ou menos entre 2 ou 3 bilhões de reais. Quando se fala de efeitos inesperados ou de erros de medicação, geralmente se diz que 50% desses erros é de falta de conformidade com a prescrição. Ou seja, os pacientes tomaram muito mais remédio do que deveriam ou tomaram menos do que foi prescrito. Mas 25% desses erros médicos nos parecem advir de erros de prescrição, prescrições incorretas, além de outros erros evitáveis, erros que poderiam ser prevenidos. Estes são alguns dos fatos que, como vocês podem ver, causam grande preocupação na sociedade sueca, exatamente pelo encorajamento e pelo incentivo ao uso correto de medicamentos, e que também são fatos que levaram a um grande esforço para a criação de uma política nacional, uma estratégia nacional de farmacêuticos que pudesse melhorar este cenário.
So these are the strategic goals that the Swedish government is setting up for this process that is expected to run for a number of years. And I'm sure they're fairly similar and maybe not that different from your ambitions. But this is how we have phrased them. We want to reach world-class medical results and patient safety. We want to focus on equal care. In addition, cost-efficient use of pharmaceuticals, attraction for innovation and products and services, and we want to make sure that this is done with a minimal environmental impact.
Então aqui temos uma lista das aspirações e ambições do governo sueco com relação à área de atenção à saúde, que tenho certeza não devem ser muito diferentes das ambições brasileiras dentro desse mesmo objetivo. Temos aqui a nossa lista, os itens abaixo, que seriam resultados de topo de linha, resultados de o que ele chama de world class, em termos de segurança do paciente e atenção à saúde, atendimento de saúde igualitário, o uso eficiente em termos de custo também de substâncias farmacêuticas, além da atração para inovação em produtos e serviços, e a minimização do impacto ambiental dentro da produção de farmacêuticos.
We have a saying in Swedish that says what gets measured gets done. So if you don't measure the objectives, you're not very likely to have any results. So the work with this Swedish pharmaceutical strategy involves also setting up different measures to ensure that all the different stakeholders, healthcare, pharmaceutical companies, pharmacists, the Swedish agencies, are actually delivering different ambitions to make sure that we reach the goals. So I've just included, to give you an example, some of the objectives that have been identified. And this is just to give you a bit of a flavor of the kind of challenges that we are working on. So when it comes to the world-class medical results and patient safety, the example that I'm demonstrating here is that one ambition is that for the whole country, the proportion of women over 50 years old with osteoporosis prophylaxis should have increased by 2014. So there's a baseline made in 2011, and then this will be measured every year to ensure that there is an increase. On the ambition of equal care, this goes for the differences in the, medical treatment that we have detected throughout the country. Differences from north to south, differences from urban areas and rural areas. And one of the ambitions here is that the regional differences in the proportion of patients that receive lipid-lowering treatment after myocardial infarction should be decreased for both men and women by 2014. This again calls for, of course, a baseline measuring of the situation, the status, 2011, and then annual review of the statistics. Do you want to transfer? The ambition on the cost-efficient use of pharmaceuticals calls for the adherence to what we call a recommended drug list, which is a list of medication that the doctors have that they are recommended to prescribe unless there is something very specific that calls for them to use a different drug. And the adherence to this drug list is to increase by up until 90%. So only 10% of prescriptions are made outside of that recommended list. Sweden is a country with a strong pharmaceutical industry, or it used to be, because this is something that is changing. And we certainly, as a country, would like to maintain that position. So when it comes to attraction for innovation, the ambition is, one of the goals that we will measure is that Swedish share of European clinical trials should increase to 12% by the year of 2014. And I know this is also an area where you're looking into in your country. Finally, on the environmental impact, one of the ambitions, and this is something we've discussed with many of with the experts here at Anvisa, is that Sweden will actively promote the review of the European Union regulations on the good